the Vegas Stats and Information Network. It helps to be connected, and nobody knows more of the bookies in Las Vegas than Brent Musburger. It's My Guys in the Desert with the legend of the guys behind the counter, broadcasting only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network at vsin.com and SiriusXM Channel 204. Live from the VSIN studios, it's the one and only Brent Musburger.
All right, guys, Vinny Mariulo and Amal Shaw here with me, and we're going to go immediately to the Superbook over at the Westgate because today we reveal the lines for Week 11 for the Super Contest and the Super Contest Gold. That means we bring in the big man, Big John Murray, one of the directors over there, does a terrific job with the rest of the bookies over at the Superbook. John, rather than starting with Thursday night, though, because Ron Flatter queued it up, I am going to jump to the 4-5-5 rotation game. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens off the board around town because no one knows whether or not Joe Flacco is going to be the Ravens quarterback. But in the contest, you've got to come up with a number on the Bengals and the Ravens. So, John, what did you put for the contest number?
Brent, we made the Ravens minus 6.5 in that game. We think Joe Flacco is going to end up playing. And you got to go with a pretty high number here after the Bengals' performance last Sunday. They got crushed by the Saints.
Exactly. So 6.5 on the Ravens, and our guys in the desert over at the Westgate think that Joe Flacco will be the quarterback. Coach John Harbaugh saying if you didn't catch that update, Joe Flacco does not have to practice to play, and he did not practice today. So we go to Thursday. Good Thursday night opener. Home teams on Thursday night have fared very well. The Green Bay Packers travel out from the Central Time Zone to play the Seattle Seahawks in the Pacific Time Zone, and away we go, John.
Yeah, we use Seattle minus 2.5 in this game. I think Seattle is going to be a pretty popular pick, even though it is the Thursday game. Seeing a lot of Seattle minus 2.5, minus 120, even some minus 3 even out there. So yeah. I think people are going to use Seattle in the contest, Brent.
Yeah, and John, of course, if they do, they have to also enter their 4 other teams. That's the rules of the contest. So some of us prefer to wait, especially given the case of Joe Flacco. A couple of days might help with that regard, but I certainly understand why folks would want the Seahawks given only 2.5 at home, even though they really have not been as dominant at home this year as we normally see the Seahawks. So let us go to the Sunday games. Carolina goes into Detroit. The Lions are reeling right now. So how much are the Panthers favored here?
Carolina, a 4-point favorite at Detroit. Carolina reeling a little bit themselves. They were blown out last Thursday night by the Steelers, but they do get 3 extra days to prepare for this game.
As Coach said, S happens, and you know what that is, Mr. Rivera. And the Dallas Cowboys, coming off their most impressive win of the season in Philadelphia, they continue on the road. The Falcons were embarrassed a bit on their road trip up to Ohio to play Cleveland. So what do we have? Dallas at Atlanta.
Atlanta, a 3.5-point favorite at home, despite losing last week to the Cleveland Browns.
Thank you very much, John. You gave me the Cleveland Browns, by the way, on my 3-1-1 staying alive week. And I'm going to skip the primetime game, and I'm going to jump to some other early starts. Let's go to the AFC South, the most underrated division. Is certainly in the AFC. The Tennessee Titans go into Indianapolis to play Andrew Luck and the Colts. That's an early starting game. What do we have on the Titans and the Colts?
Made the Colts a 2-point favorite at home. I think Tennessee is going to be a popular pick, though. They coming off of a big win against the New England Patriots on Sunday. Although the Colts are playing a lot better themselves. These are 2 teams that really upgraded their head coach position in the offseason.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And let's go to another team in the AFC South that we overlooked. We put away back in September, and suddenly nobody can beat the Houston Texans. And they go in to play the Washington Redskins, who have lost 3 starters in their offensive line. Texans, Redskins.
Texans a 3-point favorite on the road against the Redskins. You don't want to be playing the Texans with that defensive line when you're down 3 offensive line starters. It's a tough matchup for Washington.
And you follow the Redskins very carefully, I should point out to everybody out there. So when he says something about the Redskins, you all out there pay attention. All right, Tampa Bay going to stick with Fitzmagic. They're not going to change. They're not going to go back to Jameis Winston. I think Fitzmagic threw for about 405 yards, no touchdowns. In a losing effort, I know. I lost on that game. But the Buccaneers go up to play the red-hot New York Giants. What do we have on that game?
Yeah, the Giants, they've won 1 in a row, and they're laying 1.5 points at home against Tampa Bay. Now, the Giants don't want to win too many games, though, Brent. They don't want to play their way out of a top draft choice.
That is for sure. Now, those are the early games, and let me start with Vinny and Amal. Anything surprise you here so far, Vinny, and what you've heard from John for the contest?
No, I think the guys did a good job, Brent, obviously, and being mindful also of some of the early week line moves. Did have a question for John. John, and you made a comment about the Thursday night game this week. Moving forward, this is week 11. Do you see typically more Thursday night action in the contest in this the last quarter of the season? Or last third of the season?
Other than next week, no, not really. I mean, certainly we'll see a lot of Thursday action next week with the 3 Thanksgiving games.
Right.
But no, people are always hesitant to use the Thursday games, Vinny. Having to put in all 5 of your plays on Thursday afternoon, that can make things very challenging, especially when the rest of the field has essentially 2 extra days to look at line moves and injuries and other variables. You really got to like that Thursday night game to use it in the Super Contest.
Agreed. And then the only other thing before Amal chimes in here, the Ravens, I do agree. I think I agree with the guys over there, Brent. It looks like Flacco. I would make him a favorite to play, and this number of 6.5 in the contest speaks to that. Amal?
Well, then my question is to both of you. How do you guys come up with the Ravens at 6.5? Was Josh Towers in the room when making this decision? This is a team that's lost 3 in a row. They've lost 4 out of 5. Once again, last year, I said it before, 9 wins, only 1 against a team over 500. They beat the Steelers earlier this year when they were in disarray. They went down to Tennessee, dominated, but the Titans have improved since then. I don't get the admiration and the love for this Ravens team. I understand that the Bengals got blown out last week, but you guys are going to have to explain to me why the Ravens are 6.5 being under 500 against a division rival.
For me personally, it's not admiration for the Ravens. It's a play against the Bengals.
Fair enough.
John?
Amal, you just took a shot at the Superbook staff, the Baltimore Ravens, and Josh Towers all in one rant.
That's what I do.
That's coming in hot, man. No, look, our look-ahead line on this game was 5.5, and then the Bengals went out and laid a complete egg against the New Orleans Saints. See a slight bump up to 6.5 here. We don't think much of the Bengals. I agree with Vinny completely. It's got less to do with the Ravens. It's got everything to do with the Bengals.
As someone who enters the contest, I will tell you, Amal, I'm not even thinking of the Bengals with 6.5 unless Lamar Jackson is a quarterback. Then I will consider it. But if the guys over there are right and Joe Flacco's going, I wouldn't touch the Bengals at 6.5. You got to go to 7 at least before I would think about it. That team allows 5 miles of offense every time they play them. Anybody. I think the Raiders could score a touchdown against that defense in Cincinnati.
Brent, let's not go crazy, Brent. Okay.
Hold on.
With the exception of the Colts game, they're averaging 5.5 points in the previous other 4 games.
Okay. John, because I jumped all over the let me run through the numbers that you have just given me. And we've got the Seattle Seahawks. And again, if you just tuned in or you just started streaming this, what numbers are we giving? These are the Westgate Super Contest lines for Week 11. They're static. They don't change regardless of what changes at the window. The Seahawks, 2.5 at home against the Packers. The Carolina Panthers go back on the road again. They will be in Detroit, and the Panthers are favored by 4. The Atlanta Falcons return home, limping back from Cleveland, and the Dallas Cowboys coming off their most impressive win of the year. The Falcons favored by 3.5 in the Super Contest. The Ravens, as you heard Amal Shaw climb to the ceiling over this, the Ravens are 6.5 better than the Bengals. And the Indianapolis Colts, in a battle of a couple of teams that have surprised a lot of folks, Tennessee and Indianapolis, and the Colts, Andrew Luck favored by 2 at home. Houston will be favored up at John Murray's Washington Redskins. They'll be favored by 3. Texans favored by 3 over the Skins. And the New York Giants are a 1.5-point favorite over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh, man, what a one-game winning streak will do for a franchise. Okay, we're going to come back with John. Some big games are still left for the Super Contest Week 11. Back live, vsin.com, Sirius XM 204.
It's My Guys in the Desert with Brent Musburger, only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Keep up to date with everything in the world of sports gaming by going online at vsin.com.
The South Point Hotel Casino Sportsbook director, kind enough to join us on the phone this morning. Chrissy, I leave you with this. I know you started by saying, hey, look, everybody's got their own problems. Let's not talk about mine. But could you just briefly, for those who don't know, briefly share why it is that we're having this blood drive on Monday here and why that is so personal to you, what you've been going through?
Well, it is extremely personal to me. You know, they were asking me, they were going through my records, how many transfusions have you had? Man, I don't know. I mean, it's got to be well over 20. Yeah, my wife's saying it's a lot more than that, you know, so it is. But without them, I would be dead. And it's one of those things where the disease I have, I'm not producing enough red blood cells. So, so it is very personal to me. And it is one of those things, you know, when I was a younger man, I used to go and donate blood myself until I discovered that I had, you know, anemia, and I didn't really know the cause until about a year or so ago. But it's something that's really, really important. And you can see all the devastating fires and all the, just all the incidents that happen here in America and really around the world, you know, that people need blood on occasion. And it's one of those things where, you know, if you can come and donate, it's not that difficult to do. Usually you sit down in a chair. It takes, you know, probably less than an hour, and they give you some orange juice and a couple cookies and that sort of thing. And it's not a horrible experience, and you're really doing something for your fellow man. And, and like I said, without it, I'd have been long gone, man. I really would have been. But, so it is something that means quite a bit to me. And if something were to happen where they ran out of blood for some reason or another, well, you know, I'd be in pretty big trouble. I can tell you that.
God forbid. November 19th, Monday, this coming Monday here at the South Point from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
In the Brunswick Room, we will have a blood drive. Everybody can come in and donate blood. I know I will. Everybody here will. And for folks who are not in Vegas, www.redcross.org, you can click the Give Blood tab to learn where to donate near you. We hope you'll join us in honoring Chrissy and helping the more than 4.5 million Americans who need donated blood each and
Now back to Sin City and My Guys in the Desert with the legend Brent Musburger, live on the Vegas Stats and Information Network, Sirius XM Channel 204, and vsin.com.
All right, it is Super Contest Wednesday. We're speaking with John Murray. He's over at the Westgate Superbook, director over there. Those fellas do a terrific job. I overlooked one of the early starting games because of the flexing that was going on with NBC. And John, Vinny, and Amal, I want to tell you a brief anecdote before I ask John about the Steelers. After practice today, multiple members of the Steelers raided Le'Veon Bell's locker. He didn't report, but his locker was still full of gear, okay? They took his nameplate off the stall. Then they divvied up the items they found in the locker. And ESPN's Jeremy Fowler has posted this video. Linebacker Bud Dupree thanks Le'Veon Bell for his Jordan brand cleats before putting one of the shoes on. So I don't think we're going to be seeing Le'Veon Bell again, Big John, in the Steelers locker room. They'll go without him down at Jacksonville, and they got a couple of bad memories last season when they took on the Jaguars. But this one is in Florida. Early start. This was flexed to early off of prime time. What do we have with the Steelers and the Jaguars?
Yeah, they flexed this one out of the Sunday night game, and I can see why with the way Jacksonville's playing. Steelers going to be a 5.5-point road favorite here, even without Le'Veon Bell.
Okay, so that is the last of our early games. Now, some of the late games, one they pushed till late, and with good reason. There are going to be a lot of eyeballs on the Super Bowl champs, the Philadelphia Eagles, now desperate this year. They go down to New Orleans, and there's a whole lot of folks looking for a number on the Saints to win the Super Bowl the way they're going. Eagles in the Big Easy. What do we have?
Saints an 8.5-point favorite at home against the defending world champions who need a win. Eagles really have their backs to the wall here. If the Redskins beat the Houston Texans and the Eagles lose, the Redskins are going to have a 3-game lead in that division over the Eagles.
John, that's the first surprising number that I've seen at 8.5. Is that what it is at the windows? I know it opened about 7.5 in Las Vegas. Or do you think that the money's going to come pounding in on the Saints?
We opened at 7, Brent, but that was before the Sunday night game. That was before the Eagles lost to the Cowboys as a touchdown favorite. Here at the book, we're dealing it at 8. And I definitely think the money is going to come in big time on New Orleans, especially in teaser bets and moneyline parlays. I would imagine Vinny and the South Point, they'll be doing the same thing on Sunday.
That's where it's trending, Brent. Yep, 7.5 to 8 as we speak. So I can see that number following suit there.
Okay. Now let's go to the red-hot Los Angeles Chargers, who have not been home in Carson, the StubHub Center, for some time, but they just keep winning, whether it's in London or Seattle or Oakland, and now they go home to host the Denver Broncos. What do we have on the Chargers-Broncos?
Chargers a 7-point favorite at home against Denver. I thought Amal brought up an interesting point yesterday when I was in studio. Chargers could still get back into that AFC home field playoff race. They're right behind Kansas City in the AFC West.
Amal?
Yeah, I think this Chargers team, they get Bosa. He's back practicing now. This is a different team. This, from a super contest standpoint, Brent, I think the number is spot on. I'm going to pass on this one.
Yeah, I would give it, obviously. I don't think I'd take it with the Broncos on
agree.
the road. I would think about it a little bit. And the one that of course, I'm interested in, obviously, because I will be there in Glendale, Arizona, the Arizona Cardinals hosting the Oakland Raiders, John. And what do we have on the contest as far as the number is concerned?
Made the Cardinals a 5.5-point favorite here, Brent. We had the number a little bit lower this morning, but Jeff Sherman and I got to talk, and we both agreed the Raiders don't want to win this game. They don't want to win any games. The worst thing the Raiders could do is win a game against another team with a bad record, maybe cost themselves that first overall draft choice.
So that takes me to Tankapalooza. And as an organization, I can see where people are coming from, and I get it. They want to protect the number one. But I'm going to tell you, I've been around a lot of professional athletes, and I never, ever have been around one who thought, we should lose this game. They're getting paid. There's jobs on the line. So I understand what people are saying. Believe me, okay? We go through it in the NBA. But I just want to make everybody perfectly clear that John's not talking about the athletes. He's talking about the organization here. And listen, the Cardinals have a better running back situation. They've got a future Hall of Famer at wide receiver. Now, whether or not the young quarterback, Amal, can stay away from throwing a couple of interceptions, even though the Raiders have not been a good takeaway team on defense. But that is probably the big issue in this game would be Josh Rosen.
Completely agree with you. I just want to go back briefly to the point you mentioned about tanking. I always find that offensive because you question people's integrity in terms of effort. Second of all, professional athletes, they're not only trying to do their best to maintain the job. Keep one thing in mind. In the NFL, you are week to week. You may have a contract, but you could be released. You're trying to put stuff on tape for another team. In terms of Rosen, he's got to get away from the turnovers. I think the one advantage in this matchup, Brent, is we've seen the Raiders offense struggle. Arizona defensively is not a bad team. They're not a great team. And I think that'll help him a little bit in this particular matchup. I expect Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk to be able to have a pretty good day.
Okay. And now, John, we have got two terrific prime time games over the weekend. Actually, must-see television, I think, for both of these games. Let's go to the one that NBC flexed in from Sunday night, and it's the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings go into Soldier Field to play the Chicago Bears. What have we done with this one?
The Bears a 2.5-point favorite at home against the Minnesota Vikings. This game could go a long way to deciding the NFC North champion this season.
Amal, that's interesting because much of the time around town, is it still 3 here at the South Point?
Went down to 2.5. So
it did. So
trending that way, yeah.
It is trending
Yes, sir.
down that way.
Yep.
Amal, your feeling about Vikings-Bears?
I like the Vikings in this spot. This is one of my teams before the season. I'm going to continue with this. They had a couple of tough losses throughout the year, but I like how good this team is. They're coming off a bye, Brent. I think Thielen and Diggs getting healthy. I think they'll be able to take advantage of that. Trubisky, look, let's be real here for a minute. He has done an effective job, but I don't think anyone is overly confident that he's the guy to lead them past these types of teams.
Well, we just talked about the quarterback matchup between the Raiders and Arizona, which is certainly a different level of teams, but it's probably going to come down to the same aspect in this game as well.
Okay, so there we have it. 2.5, Bears at home, favorite over the Vikings. Now we go to the Monday night game, which has been moved out of Mexico City because of the horrible field conditions down there at Azteca Stadium. It will be played in the Los Angeles Coliseum. 5:15 Los Angeles time is the start time. And what do we have in the contest, John, on the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Rams?
We had to go with the Rams minus 3.5. It was a pretty easy number to make. That's a pretty market number here. The Vikings-Bears game, we felt like if we used 3, there'd be too much action on the Vikings plus 3. But this one was a little bit easier, 3.5 for the Chiefs and the Rams.
Both of these games, I think, will see quite a bit of action in the contest, especially the Chiefs and the Rams, Brent, because they'll be the 2 heaviest wagered games of the weekend off the board for certain.
Brent, I just want to ask John real quickly, was there a thought at all making this line 3 just simply because of the popularity of both sides?
For the Super Contest?
Yeah.
No, we never really talked about using anything other than 3.5 in the Monday night game, Amal.
So there we have it. That will be 3.5. John, run through the entire lineup, and then I have a couple of other questions, and the guys probably have something for you, too. So go ahead through this is Week 11 over at the Westgate. Super Contest static line out on Wednesday.
You got it. Seattle, a 2.5-point favorite. That's tomorrow night at home against the Green Bay Packers. The Carolina Panthers laying 4 on the road in Detroit against the Lions. Atlanta, a 3.5-point favorite at home against the Dallas Cowboys. The Baltimore Ravens, we expect Joe Flacco to be at quarterback. They're laying 6.5 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Chicago Bears, a 2.5-point favorite against the Minnesota Vikings. That's the game that's been flexed to the Sunday night game. New Orleans giving 8.5 at home to the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. The Colts, a 2-point favorite in Indianapolis against the Tennessee Titans. Houston Texans on a 6-game winning streak, laying 3 at the Washington Redskins. The Giants on a 1-game winning streak are giving 1.5 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That game's in New Jersey. Chargers, a 7-point favorite at home against the Denver Broncos. The Arizona Cardinals, a 5.5-point favorite against the Oakland Raiders. The Steelers giving 5.5 in Jacksonville. And the Monday night game, the LA Rams minus 3.5 in LA against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, John, talking about flexing, and I don't believe that the league has announced this, but they will. I want to give you fellas over there and Vinny a heads up on a couple of games that NBC is going to be doing in prime time. They are flexing out of games in Seattle and Oakland. The one in Oakland would have involved the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the games that they are going to put up will be the Los Angeles Chargers at Pittsburgh, Week 13. That's going to be a prime time Sunday night game. Week 14, which would have been in Oakland, will now be the Los Angeles Rams at the Chicago Bears. So 2 terrific football games are ahead of us in prime time. As most of you realize, ratings are up, and so those are a couple of good games, John, going forward on Sunday nights in Week 13 and 14.
Yeah, Rams-Bears should be a great game,
Yeah.
Brett. And it says a lot about the Chicago Bears. They've had 2 home games flexed into the Sunday night game.
Yeah,
It says a lot about how the Bears are doing this year.
Yeah, and again, Jim Miller, former quarterback, who is one of the few people I know who's really watched Trubisky from a scouting standpoint this year. And he has said that we are all underrating Trubisky. as a passer. We all know he can run and do it on the move. But he thinks the young man has turned the corner. Now, to Amal's point, we're going to find out because the Vikings can be pretty good on defense. So we'll see how Mr. Trubisky fares in that game. Now, Mr. Murray's been keeping me alive, okay? VSIN 1 is still very much in the thick of this battle going forward, and I always love when he gives me one. He and the guys over there talk about it, and they come up and they give me a team. And, John, who do I have from the Superbook guys to put in on the entry for VSIN 1?
You know, Brent, we talk about it, but they make me trot out here and deliver it to you. You know, it's a one-man
You can name names, John. Go ahead. You can name names. Go ahead.
No, I would never going to name names. Now, we discussed a little bit. We had a little back and forth. We're going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles plus 8.5. That's a game that the house is going to need big time, too. So we'll be rooting for you extra on Sunday afternoon, Brent.
I like it a lot. That was the one line that jumped off the page at me, to tell you the truth. I thought it would be down more closer to 7. 8.5, I love that. So the Eagles are my first pick. I was tempted, John, to send us in on Thursday, but I did that once this year and did not have a good week. So I'll probably wait because the Joe Flacco situation does intrigue me. Now, there's a college football game that I'm interested in involving Notre Dame and Syracuse in Yankee Stadium on Saturday afternoon. I think it's mid-afternoon. If I recall correctly, NBC is going to televise that game at 2:30 Eastern Time. It says up here on vsin.com. Yes. Will you get a lot of action because it's the Fighting Irish? And do you have a number over at the Superbook? Here it's 10.5. I see at the South Point the Irish have been favored, but it has yo-yoed a little bit here the last 24 hours. What's going on, John, with Syracuse and Notre Dame?
You know, I looked at that game this afternoon. I saw we had money in there at Notre Dame at -9, -10, -10.5. Last time I looked, we were up to Notre Dame -11. Everybody going against Dino Babers. Dino Babers is a good football coach, Brent. Be careful fading Dino Babers, and Eric Dungy's a pretty good quarterback, too.
You know, that's interesting because Windy City Sam, one of your buddies, you're on the air with him on Tuesday over here at VSIN, and he's taken Syracuse, and you named Babers, and Sam's been talking about him in the mall.
Yeah, this will be one of the heavier bet games, Brent, to your point. I think a lot of the line move so far has to do with Ian Book being announced as a quarterback for the Irish and the fact that they're right now locked into a playoff spot, but Syracuse there. I think if you're going to bet Syracuse, maybe wait a little bit and see if you can get better than 11, and it just might happen.
This is definitely going to be a challenge for Notre Dame. Syracuse offensively has been very good this year. They're much improved defensively. And Brent, to John's point about Dino Babers, want to know how good of a coach he is. Mike Jinks, who used to be at Bowling Green, he's no longer the coach there.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a sure sign of a good coach. It's a sure sign of anything in sports. As soon as you leave, it falls apart. Yep. Take a look at the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Isn't that the truth, my friend? The Cavaliers without big LeBron. John, before I let you go, tell me, as you know, I picked against your Redskins last week, and I thought they showed up with a gutty effort down in Florida. I think that any time you can keep a team that throws for 400-plus yards out of the end zone, the defense is doing something right. And in Alex Smith, you've got a quarterback who's just not going to make the big blunder going forward. Now, they have not played. Why don't they play well at home? Why don't they have any edge at home, John?
Oh, ask Gil Alexander about this, but the Redskins have no home field advantage. Nobody wants to go all the way out to FedEx Field to watch a Redskins game. It's out in the middle of nowhere in Maryland. Nobody wants to go, and they don't really have a home field advantage at all. They're kind of like the Rams in that sense. I think Redskins +3 is probably a decent play, but I didn't want to use it because their offensive line is so banged up. And Houston's got Watt, Clowney, Merciless, and all those guys on their defensive front. Makes me nervous.
Yeah, that is a very, very solid point that he has there, Vinny.
Brent, some of these new stadiums, by basic location and configuration, they've lessened the home field advantage. RFK was really a difficult place to play at one time, as John, I'm sure will know, as growing up as a Redskin fan. And you covering those games.
Oh, yeah.
Right, John? I mean, what a difference it is for this play. Yeah.
RFK used to be rocking. FedEx Field is out in the middle of nothing. Nobody wants to go there. They'd rather watch on their big screen TV, Vinny.
There you go.
And now, the final question for you, John, about college football. Not a game this week, but I believe over at the Superbook for several weeks, you have had Michigan as a 3.5-point favorite on Ohio State. Is it still bettable over there at that number, or has it changed?
Yeah, it's 3.5, and so far all the tickets have been on Michigan. They've been smaller bets, but no one's been looking to take the Buckeyes yet. Can't wait to watch that game next Saturday. It's going to be awesome.
I saw you looking directly at Amal Shaw when you said nobody's looking to take the Buckeyes. I got it, John. I got it. And that's payback. That's payback for him slapping you around for that spread on the Ravens and the Bengals.
Well, I took a shot at Josh Towers more than anybody. I thought that was a little unnecessary. But
okay.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right, John. Thanks a lot. Good luck over there at the Superbook. We'll see you next week, and I'll see if we can keep VSiN 1 going. And we're in with the Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks a lot. And,
yes, sir. Have a good week.
You bet. I want to remind everybody that the new copy of Point Spread Weekly is out, and no surprise, it's got the Rams right there on the cover, and of course on the big one is with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I hope you have subscribed to it because it's one of our biggest issues of the year. 118 pages. Okay, now. Steve Makinen explains how to use his 3 sets of strength ratings and offers trends for college and pro football. Matt Newmans is in there with some of his picks for the weekend. Hoops Peterson is along because we're into the college basketball season. We've got handicapping articles, information on the NBA, NHL, NASCAR, CFL, golf, and everything in between. All right. We're going to take a break. Go to vsin.com. Sign up for it right now. Mr. Flatter has an update. And then one of our guests from Gaming Today dropping by. All right. vsin.com, Sirius XM 204.
It's My Guys in the Desert with Brent Musburger, only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Keep up to date with everything in the world of sports gaming by going online at vsin.com.
If you didn't catch vsin last week, here's some of what you missed.
Here's a guy who comes to the counter. He has a 10-teamer. He got 9 in to the Eagles. A $5 ticket pays like $4,000. So naturally, that's a big score, $5 bet. And he said, Jimmy, what can I do? I said, nothing. He said, can you hold the ticket and make the bet the other side? I said, listen. I said, Jimmy will be in jail and you'll be out of here. I said, we cannot, the reason we can't ever do that is very simple. From gaming control and all the laws that are written here in Nevada, we can't hold your money for you. Correct. It's like a what-if bet. Like people say, well, they do it back east. They say, well, that's illegal. Bookmakers, they can do what they want to do. But if you come to the counter and said, give me the Patriots early. If I win that game, bet it on the Cardinals late, something like that, we cannot do that.
It's too bad you weren't living here at the time, because who knows what you would have walked away with. So years ago, my ex wins millions of dollars.
Are you going to tell the story?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, sure. All right. It works. And I fall asleep. She goes, I'm going to go gamble, get you some lunch, and we'll see what happens. I go, okay, I'll see you when you get home. And I fall asleep on the couch. It's a Friday. I wake up, I got 50 missed calls. 50. It's like, you won't believe this. I just won. Well, it's over $5 billion. We'll just leave it at that.
Derek Stevens, who's been on air many times, who owns the D, right? Well, if Derek Stevens is hedging something, my answer is probably going to be different than if the casual $20 bettor is hedging something.
Right.
Is this a life? In other words, hedging has become such a cottage industry by blowhards on Twitter. Like, oh, yes, how you hedge this? You got to do this. Do you really? Most of the time? Like, is this most of the time when people are asking, I'm like, do you really need to lock in $20 here? Maybe you do. I don't want to make a judgment about it. Maybe you do. If you do, my answer is different than if you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I could lose that $20.
All right, John, let's get you out of here on this. Of course, we ask you every single time, what would you like to lock in before you get out of here?
To lock it in. Last week I locked in the Broncos, and they were right there for the push, and their coach decided to play for a 51-yard field goal, John.
Oh, Vance Joseph got
awesome.
you on that one.
So what are you looking at today?
You know what? Let me go with my Brownies, John. I'll go with the Brownies. They're plus 5.5 here. I think this line's crazy. Our look-ahead number on this game was Falcons -1. I think this number is an overreaction to the Falcons win last week and the Browns loss. I'll take the 5.5.
I'm Ron Flatter with your VCN Action Update. After being traded from Minnesota, Jimmy Butler makes his 76ers debut in a half hour. Philadelphia is a 6-point favorite visiting Orlando. Waiting to hear if Russell Westbrook may come back from his ankle injury to play tonight for Oklahoma City. He took part in this morning's shoot-around. He's been out on the floor in early pregame warm-ups. Still listed as out, but the Thunder did not rule out the possibility of Westbrook playing. So OKC is a 9-point favorite hosting New York. It's the first game back in Toronto for Pistons coach Dwayne Casey, who was fired last spring by the Raptors after he was named Coach of the Year. Coming off a loss to New Orleans, the 12-2 Raptors are 10-point favorites in an hour against Detroit. The game of the night in college basketball has tipped near Philadelphia. 8th-ranked Villanova closed a 7-point favorite against number 18 Michigan, but the Wolverines got the early jump. 16 minutes to go first half. It's Michigan 8, Villanova 2. In a half hour, top-ranked Duke is laying 26, hosting Eastern Michigan. Baseball, Tampa Bay's Blake Snell has won the American League Cy Young Award over Houston's Justin Verlander and the Indians' Corey Kluber. The National League Cy Young will be announced in a few minutes. Offshore, the Mets' Jacob deGrom is favored over the Nationals' Max Scherzer and the Phillies' Aaron Nola. In the NFL, Seattle is laying 2.5 tomorrow night, hosting Green Bay. John Harbaugh says that Joe Flacco does not have to practice in order to start Sunday, but he stopped short of declaring Flacco his starter. The Ravens' home game against Cincinnati is off the board for normal betting purposes here in Nevada. Just ask our friend Chris Andrews, the sportsbook director here at the South Point. He'll tell you that blood transfusions saved his life, so why not help? If you live around here in Las Vegas, join us here at the South Point on Monday between 10 and 6 for our blood drive. And if you're not in Southern Nevada, please visit redcross.org. Click the Give Blood tab to find out where you can be a donor. Help us honor Chris Andrews and help the more than 4.5 million Americans who need blood donated each year. Back to Brent Musburger now, here on VSIN.
Now back to Sin City and My Guys in the Desert with the legend Brent Musburger, live on the Vegas Stats and Information Network, SiriusXM Channel 204, and vsin.com.
All right, welcome back. I just did a quick little piece of research that's that 6.5 number with the Ravens over the Bengals has become sort of a contentious issue here. And the last 3 games that the Bengals have played, they've given up 551 yards, 576 yards, 509 yards, and they've fired their defensive coordinator.
Very valid points. The Bengals this year have lost to the